The clock was ticking, each second echoing louder than the last for those who had been waiting for this moment. Across the globe, a subtle but electric tension filled the air, an invisible energy that connected investors, traders, and casual watchers alike. For weeks, whispers had circulated through online forums, social media groups, and financial communities, a quiet hum that grew steadily louder with each passing day. The news was finally official. Wells Fargo and Bank of America were launching live rates for the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong, and tonight, at the stroke of midnight, the numbers would be revealed to the world. People had been speculating for months. Some had quietly hoarded these currencies, watching their paper notes like precious relics, while others were new to the idea, drawn in by the stories of sudden gains and life-changing profits. For many, the intrigue wasn't just financial. It was a mix of curiosity, fear, hope, and a dash of disbelief. Could it really happen? Could these undervalued currencies suddenly surge in value, offering a rare chance to turn small investments into something extraordinary? The idea had sparked a frenzy online, with discussions, charts, and predictions popping up every few minutes on forums dedicated to currency trading. As the night wore on, the digital spaces became alive with anticipation. Reddit threads and Telegram groups were buzzing, with users sharing every scrap of information they could find. "It's happening tonight," one post read, plastered with excited emojis. Another read, "Get ready, the dinar is about to change everything. Don't miss it." The language was urgent, almost feverish, as if the internet itself was holding its breath. Analysts and financial influencers began streaming live, giving their predictions in rapid succession, their voices overlapping with a sense of excitement that was impossible to ignore. Every chart, every historical comparison, every rumor of VIP exchanges only added to the mounting suspense. In homes across cities, towns, and villages, people prepared themselves. Some checked their old bank accounts and wallets for the notes they had kept tucked away, while others set up multiple tabs on their computers, ready to watch the moment unfold. The screens glowed dimly in the darkened rooms, casting shadows on faces etched with concentration, hope, and anxiety. For some, this wasn't just another financial update. It was personal. It was the culmination of years of research, quiet speculation, and patient waiting. The Iraqi dinar, the Vietnamese dong, currencies that had often been dismissed or overlooked, suddenly held the potential to rewrite personal histories. Financial blogs and online news sites were already predicting waves of volatility. "Expect unprecedented attention," one article warned. Traders who have been dormant for years will be watching every tick of the exchange rate tonight. Others added layers of speculation about what might happen if the launch exceeded expectations. Could it trigger a rush similar to the cryptocurrency booms? Would banks themselves face unprecedented traffic from nervous investors? Questions like these hung in the air, unanswered but energizing the communities that had been following every hint for months. As midnight approached, the tension became almost tangible. Every notification pinged like a drumbeat, every flicker of a screen felt like a heartbeat. The world, it seemed, had collectively paused, waiting for a signal that would mark the beginning of a new chapter in currency history. In financial chat rooms, the conversation became almost frantic. 3 minutes, someone typed, followed by a string of excited emojis. Half a minute to go, another added. Strangers were cheering each other on, offering advice, predictions, and encouragement as if united by a shared destiny. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, banks were preparing to release the numbers. Wells Fargo and Bank of America had coordinated their systems to go live simultaneously, ensuring that investors and traders everywhere would receive the rates at exactly the same moment. The process was meticulous, almost surgical, a dance of technology and finance synchronized to the second. For those watching from the outside, it seemed like magic. An invisible hand poised to reveal fortunes, shifting lives, and igniting speculation. Even those who were skeptical couldn't ignore the energy building around the event. Casual observers who had stumbled across news articles or social media chatter found themselves drawn in. It wasn't just about the dinar or the dong. It was about the sense of being present for a historic moment, about witnessing something that could ripple across economies, portfolios, and personal dreams. The feeling was addictive, intoxicating, as though the world was collectively holding its breath for something extraordinary to happen. And then, as the final seconds ticked away, the chatter reached a fever pitch, 10-9-8. The counts echoed across streaming platforms as content creators, analysts, and ordinary viewers all synchronized their anticipation. Every eye was fixed on the screens, every hand poised to click, every mind racing with possibilities. The digital communities erupted in shared suspense, a global chorus of expectation, excitement, and curiosity. When the clock finally struck midnight, notifications flooded in, and screens flickered with the first live rates. Even though the numbers had only just appeared, the impact was immediate. Forums exploded with reactions, some jubilant, some cautious, some utterly stunned. Investors began calculating potential gains. Traders adjusted their strategies, and everyday observers marveled at how quickly the landscape of opportunity seemed to shift before their eyes. For a few brief moments, the entire world seemed to exist in a single heartbeat, united by the launch of numbers on a screen. In that moment, the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong ceased to be mere currencies. They became symbols of potential, of timing, and of opportunity. People who had waited patiently for years felt vindicated, while newcomers tasted the rush of witnessing history firsthand. The excitement wasn't just financial, it was emotional, visceral, almost cinematic in its intensity. Across the globe, people celebrated quietly in their homes, whispered excitedly to friends, and shared screenshots as proof that they had been there, part of something bigger than themselves. As the first reactions settled into the early hours of the night, the energy didn't dissipate. Analysts continued their live commentary, social media continued to buzz, and investors, both seasoned and new, continued to strategize. The launch of the dinar and dong rates had done more than reveal numbers. It had created a narrative, a moment in time that people would remember, discuss, and analyze for months to come. What had started as a whisper had grown into a roar, an event that had connected thousands, if not millions, through the anticipation, the speculation, and the excitement of seeing the numbers finally go live. And even as people began to sleep, their dreams were tinged with anticipation, speculation, and the possibility of what the next day might bring. The world had changed, at least in the minds of those watching, and for many, tonight would be remembered as the night when opportunity arrived quietly, but with the force of a thunderclap. The countdown had ended, and the world seemed to collectively exhale as the clock struck midnight. In homes, offices, and small trading hubs around the globe, screens flickered to life with the first live rates for the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. For some, it was just numbers on a screen, digits scrolling across a table in a seemingly endless stream. But for those who had been waiting, researching, and planning, it was far more than that. It was a moment charged with possibility, a junction where hope, risk, and opportunity collided. Every eye glued to the screen felt the pulse of the market, each tick of the rate echoing like a heartbeat in their own chest. Social media erupted instantly. Notifications pinged relentlessly, filling phones with the chatter of excited investors and curious onlookers. Screenshots were shared, live reactions streamed, and comment sections overflowed with speculation and celebration. Some posts simply exclaimed disbelief, "It's real, the rates are live." Others offered analysis, "Look at the dinar, it's moving faster than anyone expected." Telegram channels, Discord servers, and Reddit threads became virtual war rooms, filled with strategists dissecting every decimal point, every slight movement in the charts, every whisper of insider information. The digital world had transformed into a living, breathing organism, pulsating with the energy of collective anticipation. In offices of seasoned traders, the scene was equally frenetic. Multiple monitors displayed charts, graphs, and trading dashboards, all competing for attention. Hands moved swiftly over keyboards, eyes scanning for patterns, opportunities, and anomalies. The dinar and dong rates weren't just numbers, They were signals, alerts that could dictate decisions worth thousands, even millions of dollars. Traders adjusted their positions, calculated potential outcomes, and messaged colleagues in rapid succession. Every minor fluctuation prompted a wave of reactions, as if the very air in the room was charged with electricity. Meanwhile, ordinary investors experienced the launch differently, yet with equal intensity. Some sat on couches in dimly lit living rooms, clutching old banknotes they had stored carefully for years, their fingers tracing the edges as if connecting physically to the potential wealth the tiny slips of paper represented. Others hovered over laptops, notebooks open, calculations scribbled down in neat columns, trying to make sense of the early movements. For these individuals, the launch wasn't just a financial event. It was a test of patience, a reward for years of quiet hope, and a window into a world they had only observed from the sidelines until now. As the minutes ticked by, reactions varied. Some investors were immediately jubilant, seeing figures that exceeded expectations. Their excitement spilled out in messages to friends, family, and online communities. "It's happening," one typed, accompanied by a flurry of emojis. "I've been waiting for this moment for years." Others were cautious, observing the first fluctuations and weighing potential risks. Even in moments of uncertainty, there was a shared sense of being part of something historic. It wasn't just the rates themselves, it was the timing, the coordination, and the sheer spectacle of a global financial event unfolding in real time. Financial influencers and analysts seized the moment, broadcasting live to audiences eager for commentary. Cameras, microphones, and screen shares captured every movement in the market, every insight, and every prediction. "The dinar is showing unusual momentum," one said, pointing to a rising trend line. "Watch closely. This could signal the start of significant market activity." Across different platforms, voices overlapped, creating a chorus of analysis, excitement, and speculation. It was an orchestra of information, with each participant contributing to the rhythm of anticipation. Even those outside the immediate trading world found themselves drawn into the frenzy. News alerts, social media notifications, and conversation threads ensured that few could remain indifferent. Casual observers marveled at how fast events were unfolding, how quickly discussions were shaping, and how interconnected everyone had become. The launch of the dinar and dong rates had transformed from a niche financial update into a cultural moment, a story shared, discussed, and debated across continents in real time. In the quiet corners of the night, personal stories began to emerge. One young investor had taken small savings and invested cautiously months ago, never expecting the launch to arrive with such intensity. Watching the numbers climb on his screen, he felt a rush of validation and hope. A retired individual who had kept a modest collection of dinar notes tucked away for years watched in awe as value streamed live, imagining what even a small gain could mean for comfort and security. For countless people, the rates were more than numbers. They were a tangible connection to dreams, aspirations, and a sense of possibility that had previously seemed out of reach. Meanwhile, online communities became stages for a new kind of social interaction. Live chat rooms were filled with speculation, strategy, and shared amazement. Advice flowed freely, with seasoned traders guiding newcomers, explaining patterns, and cautioning against rash decisions. Memes and celebratory messages peppered threads alongside serious analysis, creating an environment that was simultaneously intense and communal. It was as if the world, normally fragmented by geography and time zones, had compressed into a single digital space where anticipation and excitement were collectively amplified. As the first hour of live trading unfolded, the numbers continued to move. The dinar and dong rates reflected not just the opening momentum, but also the ripple of reactions from investors worldwide. Every small change prompted discussion, calculation, and sometimes sheer astonishment. The speed and intensity of the market's response underscored how much the event had been anticipated and how deeply it resonated with those who had been watching closely. Some observers were struck by the emotional weight of the moment. The screen showed nothing but numbers, yet for those watching, each digit carried significance far beyond its numeric value. It represented hope, patience, strategy, and the potential to reshape financial futures. For some, the launch was a once-in-a-lifetime event. For others, it was validation of years of quiet observation, research, and careful planning. The experience was immersive, pulling people into a collective emotional tide where the excitement of strangers felt intimately personal. Even as the early momentum stabilized, the story continued to unfold. Analysts and traders dissected every movement, offering predictions for what might come next. Social media remained alive with commentary, screenshots, and real-time reactions. For many, the initial numbers were just the beginning and opening chapter in what promised to be a dynamic, unpredictable, and electrifying financial story. By the end of the scene, it was clear that the launch of the dinar and dong rates had achieved more than anyone had anticipated. It had captured attention, inspired discussion, and most importantly, connected people in a shared moment of suspense and possibility. The world had witnessed an event that was both numerical and profoundly human, a convergence of technology, finance, and emotion that left participants wide-eyed, buzzing with excitement and eager to see what the next chapter would bring. The first light of dawn began to creep through windows across the world, but the energy from the midnight launch of the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong rates had not faded. In homes, offices, and virtual communities, people were still wide awake, eyes glued to screens, minds racing with calculations, speculation, and anticipation. The initial shock and excitement had settled into a focused intensity as investors and observers alike tried to make sense of what they had witnessed. The numbers were no longer just live rates, they had become a canvas upon which dreams, strategies, and histories were painted. Every decimal point carried weight, and every movement in the charts seemed to ripple through individual and collective imaginations alike. Online communities remained abuzz. Telegram groups, Discord servers, and Reddit threads overflowed with conversation as participants shared their interpretations, screenshots, and personal experiences. For many, the discussion was no longer just about profit, it was about being part of something larger than themselves. People shared stories of how they had come to hold these currencies, some as casual curiosity, others as years of meticulous planning. Across platforms, a sense of camaraderie emerged even among strangers as everyone tried to navigate the unprecedented moment together. Advice flowed freely, warnings circulated, and celebratory posts mingled with detailed analyses. The digital world had become a living record of human emotion intertwined with finance. Analysts and financial influencers continued their live commentary, providing guidance and predictions for what might come next. Graphs were drawn, trend lines examined, and historical patterns compared. Every slight fluctuation prompted new interpretations, as people tried to understand whether the momentum they were witnessing was temporary, sustained, or the start of something larger. The interplay of technology, information, and human reaction created a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. Screens updated, messages popped up, alerts rang out, and the collective attention of thousands, and perhaps millions remained fixed on a few simple numbers that held profound significance. In private spaces, individual reactions varied. Some were calculating potential moves, trying to time trades or consider when to cash out. Others were in reflective awe, realizing that they were witnessing a rare moment where patience and research met opportunity. One investor, who had quietly held a collection of dinar notes for over a decade, felt a mixture of disbelief and elation. Each new update in the live rates confirmed the possibility that his foresight could finally pay off. Across the globe, similar emotions echoed: hope, anticipation, and a realization that the events of the night could have real-life consequences far beyond the numbers on a screen. The social aspect of the event also became increasingly apparent. Strangers encouraged each other, shared stories, and debated strategies as if they were in a physical room together. Memes, celebratory posts, and screenshots of live rates littered the digital spaces, blending humor, excitement, and seriousness in ways unique to the internet age. Even skeptics who had doubted the significance of the launch found themselves drawn into discussions, compelled to witness and analyze the unfolding story. The event had transcended its financial roots, becoming a shared cultural experience that connected people across continents, time zones, and backgrounds. Media coverage added another layer of intensity. News websites, financial blogs, and online publications rushed to report on the launch, each article contributing new context, analysis, and speculation. Headlines highlighted the historic nature of the event, and interviews with experts offered insight into what the live rates could mean for both seasoned investors and newcomers. The coverage amplified the excitement, ensuring that even those who had not been following the story closely were now drawn into its orbit. Television anchors, online reporters, and social media personalities discussed the potential implications, turning the launch into a global conversation that blended finance, human interest, and the thrill of witnessing a rare moment. As hours passed, people began to reflect on the broader significance of what had happened. The launch of the dinar and dong rates was more than a financial transaction. It was a demonstration of interconnectedness in a global economy. It showed how technology could synchronize reactions across the world, how information could travel instantly, and how collective attention could create a shared experience that transcended borders. For many, the moment was a testament to the power of patience, research, and readiness. It highlighted the ways in which individuals could participate in financial systems, once considered opaque or inaccessible. Personal stories continued to emerge. One young investor recalled how they had purchased a small amount of dinar after watching videos and reading articles online, unsure whether it would ever have any real impact. Now, as the live rates streamed in, the sense of validation was overwhelming. Another person, who had held onto dong notes gifted by a friend years earlier, marveled at the idea that something seemingly insignificant could suddenly become part of a historic moment. Across communities, the launch was inspiring new participants to learn, analyze, and engage, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the initial event. For some, the experience carried an emotional weight that was nearly tangible. The screen was not just a display of numbers, but a mirror reflecting hope, ambition, and the anticipation of change. Each fluctuation brought a rush of adrenaline, each new peak a glimmer of possibility. The combination of technology, human psychology, and the global nature of the launch created an environment where attention, emotion, and action intertwined seamlessly. The dinar and dong had become symbols of potential, and those watching felt intimately connected to the unfolding story. As the first morning light grew stronger, the event began to settle into a rhythm. The initial excitement remained, but participants had begun to strategize for what was coming next. Analysts continued to provide predictions, influencers shared insights, and community members exchanged advice. What had started as a live reveal had evolved into an ongoing dialogue, a shared exploration of opportunity, risk, and human ambition. Even as the numbers stabilized, the significance of the moment lingered, leaving a lasting impression on those who had witnessed it. By mid-morning, it was clear that the launch of the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong rates had achieved more than anyone could have anticipated. It had united people in anticipation, inspired conversation, and created a sense of collective experience that few financial events ever achieve. For investors, it had been a test of patience and strategy. For casual observers, a spectacle of global significance. And for communities online, a shared story that would continue to be analyzed, celebrated, and remembered. Even as screens were turned off and people went about their daily lives, the memory of the event persisted. The launch was more than an update. It was a milestone. It demonstrated the speed, connectivity, and emotional intensity of modern financial markets. And most importantly, it left participants with a sense of being part of history, a story they could tell, analyze, and reflect upon long after the numbers had changed. For many, the night had been transformative. The dinar and dong rates had moved beyond paper and digital numbers. They had become a symbol of possibility, of readiness, and of participation in something larger than oneself. As the day unfolded, the world slowly resumed its normal rhythm, but the impact of the launch lingered, echoing in the minds of those who had stayed awake, watched intently, and allowed themselves to be part of an extraordinary moment.